So we come to the last Sunday in ordinary time, the end of the church's year. And we celebrate it with the solemnity of our Lord Jesus Christ, King of the universe. Now, when we say king, we don't mean merely metaphorically. The very title Christ is Christos, is a translation of Messiah, the Hebrew word. And it means anointed one. Jesus is a descendant of David the king. He has a real royal claim to a throne. But we also mean more than that. Very often, we've explained his kingship as being king of our hearts. And he ought to be the king of your hearts. But that's not enough. If he is truly king, if he's king over all the rulers of the earth, then it's not just individual proclaiming him as king. Society must also proclaim him as king. He is truly king over all things. Now, the image we get in our mind, especially as Americans, we think democracy is the best sort of thing. So the idea of calling Jesus king might not appeal to us. His kingship is different than every other sort of kingship. We've been taught in history to think of kings as being dictators and tyrants. But this is a kingship where the throne is a cross and the crown is made of thorns. This is a king who gives himself away. Every other government, little by little, finds way to take from us, don't they? Jesus opens up the treasuries of his grace and bestows it upon us. He wants us to share with him the kingship that he has received through his crucifixion and resurrection. The other thing that afflicts us Americans is we've been taught about separation of church and state. But we've usually been misinformed about it. Our founding fathers were not concerned to protect the state from religion. They were concerned to protect religion from the state, and therefore put certain limitations in our Constitution. When Jesus returns in glory at his second coming and receives the fullness of his kingship, there will no longer be such a thing as a state separate from religion. All things shall be held in dominion under Jesus. And this is what we long for. And so it sometimes takes a little bit, precisely because of our American mindset, to remove that bit that we've received from the world and truly uphold Christ as the king of all things, right? Not just king of my emotions, not just king of my charity that I give to others, but king of my finances, king of my politics, king of all things. Jesus says this, for this he was born, for this he came into the world, and that whoever belongs to the truth hears his voice. We say in the creed every Sunday, and his kingdom will have no end. It will be one, and it will be everywhere. There will no longer be room for anything that's contrary to the gospel, whether in teaching or in the way we live. All things will be subject to Christ. The word Kyrie, when we say the Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy, Kyrios, that's the title for Caesar. And the very word that we translate as gospel, evangelium, think evangelize, that word is the good news that the Caesars sent before them when they had been victorious in battle against foreign armies. And so too, Jesus' good news is the story about his victory. Last Sunday, we talked about death and judgment and hell, and how fearsome that trial will be, how terrible it will be. And this Sunday, we talk about the very last thing of all, the glory of our King. When he returns in glory, we will see beauty beyond imagining. If we are faithful and follow him, we will reign with him in heaven. He will share his kingdom with us. And so that is why we have hope. We have one in whom we can put our trust. Unlike earthly governments, who always run the risk of corruption and fade away, one government takes over another and it passes from this world. The kingship of Christ will never fade away. He will rule forever. And we never need worry about any sort of corruption. We know that he lives forever. And so we can place all our hope in him. And so the church invites you this day to make Christ king, not just of your hearts, but to recognize his eternal rule over all of creation. If we are faithful to him, we too shall reign with him.